You sent me a link today to a very intriguing nonprofit that you're working with when it comes to the voting public.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, please.
Thanks. I'd like to do that, Rob. I hope you can hear me okay. The group that I'm part of is called the Democracy Defense Project, and we actually have a Pennsylvania board. It's 4 of us who were former elected officials, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. It's former Congressman Jim Gerlach, who's a Republican that I served with, and former Governor Ed Rendell, and also the former State House Speaker Keith McCall, who's a Democrat from the eastern part of the state, Northeast. And the 4 of us together have been working with the Democracy Defense Project to bring attention to the things that people have been concerned about regarding elections. It's mostly security, the uniformity from county to county, a number of issues that our Secretary of the Commonwealth, Al Schmidt, has been talking about lately as well. The big issue in the past election was that we had, I think, 3 counties that were counting votes for several weeks after the election. And those kinds of things put a lot of doubt into the voters' minds. How can they not know who voted? How can they not have counted? You know, those kinds of questions, which are actually reasonable questions. And what we're trying to do is shed light on what's wrong with our law and what needs to be fixed so that we can actually know on election night who won the election, and that these kind of games that we had to deal with in the Casey versus McCormick election will not happen again. So year by year, I think we're having the opportunity to improve the system. And so our group has been working both via letters to the editor and the media, talking with county bureaus of elections, working with Al Schmidt, the Secretary of the Commonwealth, but even more now, working with the legislature and basically sharing with them what other states have done that are part of the Democracy Defense Project that make it quicker. Just the other issues that we can tighten up in our system. Because I think the public has a right to know the night of the election who won. And our system right now is a little bit hodgepodge, and it is not streamlined to really allow for that.
In a world of technology, and we've been talking a lot about artificial intelligence, you think we could actually get the vote and the results to the American people in 2025 quicker than I even did back in the day when we were counting ballot after ballot with the paper ballots back in the early 80s. I mean, we actually got the vote results earlier and quicker back then than we do today in this world of technology. It makes no sense. So democracydefenseproject.org is where you can find out more. So, lots to get to, but I had Jason Ritchie on, who is now the chair of the Allegheny County Republican Committee, longtime friend, lawyer like you, and man, he was just all fired up, and he was talking about all sorts of good things, including my beloved Nippon Steel U.S. Steel story, but I really believe things are changing, and I asked him, and I'm going to ask you the same, why is it that a diehard Democrat is feeling good about a Republican administration? Is that okay to feel good about what I'm seeing and witnessing in Washington?
Yeah, sure it is. I think it's interesting because I don't really see this president as a Republican or a Democrat as much as I see him as a guy who came in from the private sector and got involved in politics because he didn't like what he saw, whether it was a Republican administration or a Democrat administration. It seemed like government was serving government, that it wasn't serving the public. And so I think that's why you saw so many people first change their party. You saw a lot of people who just were crossing party lines. When he won first in 2016, I think it was a lot of people who just crossed party lines to vote for him. But when the Biden administration came in, they really leaned hard to the left. They really weren't looking at serving the American people as much as they were looking at pushing an agenda that was new and I think very shocking to a lot of people. And I think that upset a lot of Americans. And I think that really made them pay more attention to what's happening and what our government is really doing for us. It seemed like 4 years before the new term started, they were doing stuff to us. And that's not what our government's supposed to be.
So, fact or fiction, let's get started. Is it a fact? And I remember you talking about this stuff, maybe not in this large of a conversation, but when you were in Congress about the overspending. Is it fact on some of the things that Elon Musk is talking about? Has that really been going on?
Well, when you look at I'll bring up the one that I think is the most shocking to people, and that's the USAID information. So this agency was initially created by a president, but then it was put into being by Congress. So it is a real agency, and its duty is basically to serve, provide sort of a vehicle for some service to different countries that need help overseas. That's something that we've done as a nation. I know a lot of people over the years have become disillusioned with it because they don't know where the money's going. They're worried, why aren't we taking care of our own people? Those kinds of issues. Now, I'm not against foreign aid, but what I am against is the United States entering countries and pushing like a moral agenda that really has nothing to do with helping the people who may be starving or who may need assistance with, building some kind of infrastructure or whatever it is we're supposed to be doing in that country. What we saw USAID doing, and those were real, is basically pushing, again, a morality agenda, some, abortion, other things that are very controversial here in the United States, just inappropriate things. So, yes, unfortunately, a lot of those things were happening.
It is fiction, this whole thing about Social Security and Medicare being threatened. Elon Musk said, look, if we don't do something now, future generations will have to face the fact that those things could go away, but they're not going to take them away in the immediate future. Why are we still with that dog and pony show? Why are we still doing that?
Because it scares people, and maybe it'll convince some people to be against the president. It's a shame, but it's hard to have the truth be told, whether it's the right-wing media or left-wing media. When you have a talk show and you have guests and you tease the information out of them back and forth, I think that's the best way to get information these days, it seems. Because when you ask a specific question, is that real, for example? So I don't know about everything that I've heard, but I have looked into some of it. There's been some pretty in-depth articles by some of the news outlets that I think are a little more moderate. And I think what's important is when you look at, for example, the Department of Education. Let's use that example. Kdka spent a little time on that this morning.
Yeah, explain that whole department. Explain all of that to me, the Department of Education.
Yeah. So most of our K through 12 education is handled and funded from your local taxes and your state taxes.
Right.
The federal government has occasionally placed mandates upon our local districts to provide additional services. And some of those additional services are really important services. The question is, are the federal government monies directed in the proper way to provide those services? When I say what those services are, it's special education. That's been a mandate from the federal government. I think most people would agree that special ed services for students who need them is very important. But we've had this back and forth with a mandate coming from the federal government and not enough money to provide the services. That's always been an issue. So giving complete control to the state and the local school districts makes a lot more sense. And that's why a lot of people are arguing to get rid of the Department of Education, because it comes in, it creates mandates, and most often does not fund them.
Can I keep you?
So that creates problems on the local level.
Can I keep you one more segment?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you. All right, we'll come back. I got lots more to get to. Busy night, lots of calls, lots of good information, great guests. So I'm going to keep Melissa for one more segment, and then we're going to get to your phone calls to wrap up the evening. Stay with us. Melissa Hart is on the line, Metropolitan Window Video Screen, kdkradio.com. Click on KDK Watch. It's your Pratt Pack. Stay with us. All right, so my producer just gave me my out time. He said 9:29, and I was thinking, Melissa, do you remember being 29 years of age? I don't know where my mind goes.
I do.
Do you? Oh, my goodness gracious.
Sure, you knew me then.
I know.
I was a state senator.
I know. You're amazing. Do you ever think about maybe if they would say, Why don't you run for governor? Would you ever consider something like that again?
Well, I would consider it again, but I don't know if people, it seems like my party is looking for the new, you know.
Yeah, but I consider you.
So I don't know that I'd be
Listen, I
considered.
think you're just as relevant as anyone who's talking politics in the nation. That's why I have you on as often as I do. And I think you could have found a career doing this, but you're an incredible lawyer. But you know what Jason Ritchie said last hour that nobody has said, and I've been trying to say it, but he did it a whole lot better. The Republican Party really has become the party of the working class people in this country.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I think you'd be more
I
relevant
actually,
now than ever.
yeah.
Go ahead.
In my career, I always felt that it was more of the party of the working class. When I first started running for office, Rob, in 1990, and I was knocking on doors in middle class areas across the Allegheny Valley, for example, the message that I had was a message that they really responded to. I mean, that's why I ended up winning that first term. And I was a Republican then,
Yeah.
you know.
That was a big win for the
So a
Republican
few decades
Party.
later, I think it's cemented.
That was a huge win for the Republican Party back then.
Oh, yeah.
That was like unheard of to do what you did. So where does this party move forward now? And could this actually be a threat locally to this whole new progressive thing? Do you think there's that much, I guess, vision now and momentum?
Well, I think the progressive thing has backfired quite a bit. So yes, if the Republican Party is smart and remains focused on the real concerns of people and doesn't get too heady and, you know, into sort of, you know, policy, but not results. You know, I think people want competence in government. They haven't had it for a while. I think if we focus on making sure we provide those kinds of things, then we'll be successful.
All right, let's get back to why you're here. Fact versus fiction. What is fact that people can take to the bank with their paycheck that's happening with the administration now that they should be paying attention to? Fact versus fiction. Go ahead.
Okay. First, the issue of this country right-sizing its government. Fact. Across the board. I think that's mostly what Elon Musk is about. Now, I don't know if you saw today, they had a cabinet meeting. So that this is the first time that all the heads of these different agencies, who are the ones who are going to set the budgets, right? They're enough to implement the budgets, I should say. They're the ones who know and who are learning, at least now, they've only been on the job for, you know, a few weeks, where the cuts can be made or where they should be made, right? So when those things happen, you're going to find the size of the federal government is going to shrink, which means the cost of the federal government is going to shrink. And the goal here is to quit with this constant expansion for no particular reason, which is a drain on Americans' wallets, but also isn't providing any better service or more service than it ever did before. So what's the point of growing that? So I think that's one. They can take to the bank. The government will be smaller, and there will be no tax increase. Now, the concern I think a lot of people are going to have, and I think the Commerce Secretary has been talking about, is about, excuse me.
God bless you.
What's going to happen with the tariffs? Are they going to cause prices here to go up? People are worried about that. I think it's legitimate that there be a watchful eye. I also know that the goal of the president is not to increase costs here. It's to make all of our trading partners look at what they've been doing to us. If your French cheese is really expensive, it's really expensive because guess what? We're paying tariffs. France has them. Everybody has them. But the United States basically has been punched in the mouth by every country that we trade with for a very long time. And I think what they can also take to the bank is that they're not going to get run over anymore.
Well,
And we as consumers, whether it's American goods or foreign goods, aren't going to get run over.
I think he just wants to bring them to the table. I think a lot of it's just a little bit of shock treatment to say, look, there's a new person running this country, and
Right.
what can you do for me? I think it's the same reason why he said to Volodymyr Zelensky, who I've been a fan of and have supported, look, we've given you $100 billion. We got to try to get this war to an end. I think that's how he kind of schmoozed Putin a little bit to get him to the table. But now he wants these earth mineral rights and simply say, okay, this is maybe how you can pay us back for some of our help. That way it's a win-win for everyone. The guy's just cutting deals is what he's doing.
He is. He's definitely acting like a businessman. I think one of the things that hasn't been explained very well to the public is that Ukraine can help supply the United States with, they call them rare earth minerals.
Yeah, what are they?
And those are minerals that we need for our technology. So a lot of all the needs for all the new high-tech devices and things that we have, they need rare earths. They need this particular types of minerals. I can't name what they are, but we have some here. But other countries have pretty strong deposits. And if we can create other supplies, it's good for us and it's good for industry manufacturing in the United States. So that's, I think, part of why he wanted to make that deal. It's to help us and our economy. As you heard, probably was it Apple that just said that they're going to create a bunch more jobs here because they're going to do more manufacturing here. That's what we need.
Yeah, $500 billion over the next 4 years. They're going to have a 250,000 square foot manufacturing site in Houston, and they're going to build a manufacturing academy in Michigan. And that's literally days after he and Tim Cook met at the White House. Tim Cook, of course, the man behind Apple. So something's going on.
Yeah, it is moving everybody offshore. Back when we were kids there, Rob, they took all their manufacturing to other places. And this is a very aggressive maneuver to bring it back.
I don't agree with everything, and I do believe he had the Republican Party as a vehicle to get into the White House. Why so many people afraid of J.D. Vance? We'll kind of end on that note. What's the fear factor there? I just see a young man who kind of grew up in poverty, found his way to the military, went to an Ivy League school, got married, is a father, seems very happy, was at the right place at the right time and made it work. And he's energetic and he's youthful. I mean, how can you not like that?
I think we need more of that. I don't think he was just vilified by some in the media, and I think that caused some people to be wary of him. But I read his book, Hillbilly Elegy. It is about his upbringing and about how his values were formed. And I mean, this is a guy who's in touch with his spirituality to the point that he actually is a convert to Catholicism. So to me, that says this guy, he's a grounded guy. I think that's the kind of leaders we need, or people who've had tough experiences, tough backgrounds, and understand it, but also have the skills now to be the implementer of policy, the creator of better policy. He's a non-traditional Republican. He is more of an isolationist. Some of the issues that, he championed in the Senate, his short career there, I think, were a little non-traditional. But, again, people have different ideas. It's important for us to have discussions about them, not to shut them down.
Early observations of Dave McCormick, and then we'll say goodnight.
Okay. Well, I actually saw Dave and Dina on Saturday night. They were kind enough to come visit the North Hills and they rented a big area for a party to thank their supporters.
Nice.
He's really excited about this. I think she's just as excited about it. But I think a lot of Dave, he, again, grew up like a normal person, had all the summer jobs, working at the tree farm and all those things. But again, he's another guy who was committed to the country. He was in the military as well, went through the military academy, I don't know if people remember this, if they remember free markets.
Yes.
But that's really how Dave got going as an executive in that the tech edge world. but also doing financial issues because that was the reverse auction company. So Dave learned a lot there, and then he moved on, of course, and did a number of different things. I first met him when he was an assistant deputy Treasury Secretary when George W. Bush was president and I was in Washington. He's a guy who really wants to serve. He's made his money. He wants to do public service.
Listen, I tell you, I'd be lost without you. I owe you a fish sandwich from Coons during the Lenten season. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're just such a bright light, and you really have a lot to say. So keep doing what you do. We need more people like you, okay?
Well, you're very kind, Rob. I appreciate the opportunity to catch up with you again.
Listen, she's good.
Someday I want to interview you.
Oh, no. I don't got much to say. I haven't lived that very exciting life that you have, a former congresswoman and now this attorney doing all this great stuff. I'm just a baloney kind of guy from Beaver County who's just making his way, you know?
Nobody's buying it, but
I'm trying.
okay.
I'm trying. God bless. Much love. Good
Thanks
night.
again.
All right. I tell you, I love talking to Melissa Hart.